Welcome to the Parent Guide to GCSE podcast. Today's guest is Jenny Eastwood from the Parent team. She'll be talking about issues of stress and anxiety around test taking and also encouraging greater motivation and confidence in your teenagers. This was originally broadcast as a live Facebook event.
Evening, everybody. So we're here this evening to talk kind of test anxiety and stress and motivating your child and things around that sort of genre. And with us, we have Jenny from the Parent team. So Jenny, hi.
Hi. Nice to be here this evening.
Evening. So do you want to do a quick sort of who you are and what you do for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a mother of 4 children. And they're aged 16 to 11, 3 girls and a boy. And my oldest girl is GCSE year this year. My background is psychology with a special interest in child development. And I did have a brief period in between after doing that when I was a banker and I lived in Asia for quite a long time. And then I came home and had 4 young children. And I decided to go back to my psychology roots and train to be a parent facilitator. So that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. I run courses, workshops, go into corporates and schools and private sessions. And what I do is help parents get the best out of family life, make life more enjoyable, hopefully have their children feeling better, more cooperative, more enthusiastic. And I do that for my own company. I started that with 3 other colleagues, and it's called the Parent Team, because we really think that parenting should be a big team effort. So that's me.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. So the important bit I got from that there was you have 3 pretty much teenage-ish girls at home right now. How many bathrooms do you have? Does anyone else get a look in? Because we only have 1 and we're struggling.
Yeah, we only have 2, and they only like mine and my husband's. So there's no privacy. So let's just say that everybody's relaxed about seeing everybody else's body in our house.
Oh goodness me!
But it's not too bad actually. They're quite sporty, outdoorsy girls. So there's not too much kind of makeup and hair going on. It's more just fighting for the shower. So.
Oh goodness, yes, we're I feel for you. I do.
Now, you say you've got a 16-year-old, so doing GCSEs, is that a phrase this year?
Surviving GCSEs.
Getting a certificate at the end of the year somehow. With the younger ones, do you think there's going to be a sibling rivalry in terms of exam results? And is that something that you see as there's a pressure amongst families for that kind of, I must beat my older brother, sister?
Or I'll never hear the end of it?
It's a really good question. I think it depends on the dynamics in a family. So, and some of it is luck of temperament of your children. Do you have children that are really intense and persistent, so they're innately competitive? That makes a difference. But also what you say as a parent. So if you make it sound like it's a super big deal, you must get the best results. My oldest daughter's called Ella, and if I said to Honor, who's 15, Honor, I hope you're going to get the same results as Ella, of course, that would make everything more competitive. But I think if you're in a household where you make it less about the actual outcome and more about the effort they made and their own strengths and their own strategies, I think that takes the pressure off a little bit. And it's about, celebrating what each child's unique strengths are, as opposed to kind of pitting them against each other. So, I get asked this question in this context all the time. And I always say it's really easy for parents to try and use comparisons to motivate, but comparisons don't really motivate. They just make siblings not like each other very much. So I would say, if you're going to do anything, if you want to get your child up to bed quickly, instead of getting your children to chase and there's a winner, have them chase you, the parent, so you don't create sibling rivalry. So I think what we say and do can have quite a big impact on that. So
I think, I mean, part of the reason I asked that was because it's certainly a driving test scenario where the first one to pass first time, the pressure on his brother, bless him,
twin brother, so same age,
was horrendous. And obviously the one who passed was busy giving it plenty. With the GCSEs, they were within 1 grade of each other across all of the subjects.
And we still haven't heard the end of it, despite the fact that they're now at uni. So,
but also the gloaty one was the one who missed out by 1 grade. So but when it came to A levels, there was the pressure was not from us; it was from between them, saying, "I need to sort of basically beat my brother." That was obviously tried to discourage.
Yeah. Yes. It's. I think. We've never done the, pitting them against each other or in any, however supportive kind of fashion, but I think they've picked up on the competitive atmosphere from one of their parents, possibly.
Now, for those listening to the podcast, that's just an outrageous accusation because I've been stared at and I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there'll always be a little bit of innate competition, actually, my oldest daughter is quite academic, and I say that really carefully because in our household we talk about many important qualities, and you can be very academic, but if you don't have good social skills, if you're not prepared to work hard, if you aren't creative, you might get grades, but you don't really necessarily have the best skill base for life. But obviously I think when you're this age, schools make a big fuss of academics, parents worry about academics, and it makes children think that they are by far the most important thing. So again, in our house, we really talk a lot about all the other important attributes you need to have a successful, fulfilling, happy life. I'm sure as teachers, but the brain doesn't finish its first major development until the age of 24. So the prefrontal cortex, this bit, which is logic and reason and delayed gratification and executive functions, organization, planning, that's still got, even with your 18-year-olds, that's got a good 6, maybe 8 years to go.
So much.
Well, it's one of the first things that I talked about in my book is it's like this is the designated driver, and so while it's still developing, basically it's your drunk friends loose in Vegas without any supervision going on in the rest of your brain, and it's that's why there's no cure for being a teenager. You just have to wait and get out of it, and I think as a parent, it's really helpful to know what is normal teenage behavior, because I think lots of parents think my teenager's out to get me, and they're not. Their job is to start to separate, and to be able to separate from you, they need to think you're a bit rubbish and you're too controlling and your music sucks and those clothes look terrible, because otherwise they'd be with you forever. So and the fact teenagers can't read facial expression very well, so you kind of go into their room and say, do you have any washing? And next thing you know, something's being thrown at your head because they've read your face as being angry when it wasn't at all. And understanding how, if they're going to separate from you, their peers have to be so important. And if their peers, dress a certain way, listen to certain music, want to do certain things, they're desperate to be part of it. And so I always think that the best thing you can be with a teenager is as calm and neutral and non-judgmental as you can be. And again, if you know what is normal teenage behavior, you just can kind of go, oops, there's the eye roll. Oops, there's the door slam. Oops, when she said she hates me and she's wished I was never her mother, she means she's just having a bad day. And as long as a parent, I can stay calm so I don't inflame the situation, then that eventually you'll make it through. That brain will grow. Yes, we've recently discovered Parent Ping, which is an app that you can download and take part in. They're doing a fabulous job. So if you've not heard about it and you're listening, basically you get 3 questions each day, and it's always multiple choice, stuff to do with school or with home or whatever. But it's just a general poll of parents, and then you come back the following day and you can see everyone's answers. So you can see the percentages, and you can see that your answers are pretty much always normal and everyone's going through the same stuff. And whilst we don't all have the exact same experience, it's nice to have that little bit of reassurance that actually it's not just me.
But how much fun must it be making those questions up about when was the last time the door was slammed on you, or had questions thrown at you, or
yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'd highly recommend that, for the record. If you're listening to this on the podcast, then this is of no use to you. But if you're watching this on the live on Facebook, do feel free to chime in with questions. If you've got anything around test taking or anxiety or helping motivate your child,
stress,
jump on in. But yeah, so I think we've what we wanted to talk about was possibly labels. So there are labels that school will attach to children. There are labels that as parents we sometimes attach to children. We have lots of labels we attach to ourselves, and we tell ourselves we're impatient, or we're, I don't know, whatever. Stubborn, possibly, yes.
Gloating.
Overly competitive. But in terms of our children, what's your advice on labels, particularly when it comes to, as we've already slightly touched on, academic and so on, and the impact that can then have on how children feel about test taking and school in general?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one of the reasons I did psychology at university was that my temperament is very intense and persistent. I mean, now I'm past 24, you can probably guess. So my brain has balanced a lot better, and I've done a lot of work on it. But, you know, when I was a kid, stubborn was applied to me. Stubborn, miss answer back, cut off your nose to spite your face. And emotions are incredibly powerful. Strong emotions are much more powerful, even as an adult, actually, than your prefrontal cortex. So as a child, you can say, I won't feel this way, I won't get angry, I won't get upset, but you can't really control emotions very well, particularly when you're young. And having a negative label attached to something that you can't control very well can be really, really difficult and damaging. So my advice is, stay away from negative labels. Negative labels. When parents normally want the best for their children, and we often use some techniques. We use some criticism, or some nagging, or we use some threats, or we use some comparison, or we use a negative label. And we do it from the best of intentions. We do it because we think it's going to motivate our children. But I always ask all of my clients who do my courses, and I say, you've had a busy day, and your partner comes in, and the first thing they do is complain about dinner and say it wasn't good enough and they didn't like it and you need to try better tomorrow. And I say, do you as an adult, if your partner says that to you, do you think, oh, I must try harder to make a nicer dinner tomorrow? What do you think?
Or do you throw it at them?
You know, so when you do an exercise, when you think about it at an adult level, there's from your own experience, and there's lots of research that shows that negative techniques, which we think are motivating, and you'd call that extrinsic motivation, don't work. They don't make anybody feel good. They make you think, I'm useless. I can never do it well enough. I'll never be as good as my brother. I am stubborn, and it doesn't get you anywhere. So because we ourselves as parents feel anxious. You think, oh my gosh, look at my child. Look at how they're behaving. Look at how they're doing in the schoolwork. Oh my gosh, what if they don't get the exam results? So we go into our emotional part of our brain, which is called the limbic system. And we release adrenaline and cortisol in our system. And that then causes us to say quite catastrophic things. You'll never amount to anything. If you don't pull your socks up, how are you ever getting a job? Or we say, if you don't put your phone down, you are grounded for 3 months. and all of this just takes up the emotional temperature in the house. And then your child doesn't feel good. You don't feel good. And your relationship is really stretched. So what I always recommend to parents is look for the good. Look for the good. So, okay, maybe everything's not going as well as you might like in that perfect fairy tale world, where your kids do nothing apart from want to do revision.
And household chores.
And household chores. And household chores and picking up manuals, which none of my children have quite mastered. So, you know, if your child gets their books out, praise them. If your child sits down for just half an hour, praise them. And really stay away from even a positive label. So never call your child clever, brilliant, amazing, talented, because that gives rise to something called a bit of a fixed mindset. Always praise any effort, any positive attitude, any good strategy, like getting all your gear out before you sit down to start, any focus, and never make it about the results. So I had this funny story. So my daughter was at school and she was doing some Greek test, and she sent me a text and she said, oh, I got top in my class for Greek. So I thought, okay. So I sent a text back and I said, you must have done really good revision to get that result. And she said, didn't do any revision. Oh, okay. So I said, that showed me you must have concentrated in your lessons with your teacher. You know, I just stay away from any kind of clever, amazing, brilliant. And we always talk about or you can only ever put in your best effort. You can only ever try the best you can do, and you only ever improve in little steps. So you'll never go from being not great to being brilliant in one big step. It's got to be a series of little steps that feel manageable. So and I always encourage my clients, look for those little steps, you know, just one little step at a time. Oh, look, you've got out of bed. And it's, you know, it's still the morning, and actually you've got your books, and actually you've sat down and you've opened your books, and really look to praise each little step, even when inside your limbic system is going, oh, it should be 6 hours of work. And, you know, but if you concentrating on the negative will give you rise to a very negative cycle, and concentrating on anything positive will give rise to an improving positive cycle. Now, every trait, pretty much the research shows that almost every personality trait is about 50% genetic. So whatever you find challenging in your children, it's probably coming from you, your partner, granny, uncle, you know. So in my house, everything good came from my husband, and everything challenging comes from my side, you know. But so given that I was telling you I'm persistent and intense, one of my children is very similar, and in our house we don't use the word stubborn. We always say she's persistent, and sometimes her sisters and brothers say,
I mean, stubborn. She's
stubborn, but mum is persistent. But we were playing one of these family games. You know, sometimes you get these cards and you do it around the dinner table, and each card says, you know, what's your favorite hobby? What's your favorite memory? And my daughter got the card that said, what's one character trait you're really proud of? And she said, I'm really proud that I'm persistent. And I would never have said when I was a child, I'm really proud I'm stubborn. But actually, they're kind of the same. So I just say to parents, if you look, you can find something good in your children. It's always there. It's just our brains are kind of designed to pick out the bits that we find challenging, or I don't know, that, you know, we worry about, and we tend to focus on those. But you know, what you focus on grows. So if you focus on the fact they're creative, or you focus on the fact they're persistent, or that grows, and it becomes something that they're proud of. So that's a kind of long answer about labels. Be really careful of them. So
I liked that a lot. And if you're listening and you're finding this useful and you want to know more about the whole fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, you want Carol Dweck's book Mindset. She is the inventor, creator.
Yeah.
I don't know. She is no, you can't use the word genius. That's a label.
Honestly,
but
wow.
She's I got to hear her speak about it once, and it just makes so much sense.
And she's been working on it for years and years and years. Yeah. So growth mindset, the more you work at it, the better you get. And I would recommend, actually, there's a if you go onto YouTube and look up her RSA animated clip, she's got a lovely clip which is about 10 minutes long, and it's perfect to show your children, because it really explains mindset. And you know, sometimes occasionally my children do a bit of music practice, and I remember one of them saying, I'm bored, I don't want to do any more music practice. And I said, growth or fixed mindset? And she'd watched the Carol Dweck video, and she said, oh, fixed mindset, growth mindset. Okay. And she, you know, picked up her instrument and did another 10 minutes of practice. So again, talking about, and I think as an adult, not always talking about all the work you put into things, and you know, and the effort it takes, and just the little steps of things working out. It's really good modeling for your children.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, sorry, I keep interrupting. Our motto is knowledge beats nagging. It's the more you know, the better you can do things. And none of us are perfect to begin with. We're all learning as we go along. And Vicky's commented that she's learning so much, and there'll be a new her from tonight.
But also be kind to yourself, because we're going to talk about a few things tonight, and you might only be able to put in one or two of the suggestions, but what if any of them feel comfortable, give them a go. And it's interesting with teenagers, because when I'm say look for the good, look for what your child's improving, look for effort, attitude, focus, strategy, be very specific, because often what parents do is they say, well done, that's amazing, great job. Then out comes the you're so clever. And also what we say a lot of is I'm so proud of you. And that praise is called evaluative praise. It's kind of a fluff, and your children often don't bear much store by it. So we say really be very descriptive. So literally say, you know, you sat at the table, and you've got 3 of your books out, and you've opened them, and you've got a pen at the table. And that was I'm really impressed that you've written a list of all the subjects you plan to revise this weekend. So, or I know you were really enjoying that film last night, but you stopped at halfway so you could go to bed on time. That was a smart thing to do. So can you see it's almost not praise, it's almost a descriptive commentary. And young children, you know, you use this praise and they just puff up. And sometimes with teenagers, you know, it's a little bit uncool. So, you know, they can kind of, you don't get necessarily the immediate puff up, but they love it just as much. And sometimes they like it if you do it, send them a little text, write a little note that you put on their pillow. And, you know, when you make the effort to give this descriptive praise, they basically get a hit of the neurotransmitter dopamine. And dopamine is your reward chemical. And dopamine it's released in anticipation. So anything you can praise, you know, we're talking tonight about preparation for GCSEs, but anything you can praise, when your children get used to the fact that you look for the good and you praise them, they start getting these dopamine hits almost in advance of you saying anything. And you, the person giving the praise, gets a dopamine hit as well. So it's a total win-win. And the research shows, I don't know if you guys here have come across the Gottman Institute in the US. They're a relationship institute. They're absolutely brilliant. So look them up, the Gottman Institute. And they've really looked at what makes relationships flourish. And you need 5 positives to every negative to kind of have a thriving relationship. And research shows that most children hear about 11 negatives to every positive. So, and again, I always say to my clients, you know, you're going into a work appraisal and your boss says 3 nice things and 1 thing you need to improve. What do you come out thinking about? The thing that you need to improve. So a negative comments have a much bigger impact on us than positive comments. So if you can get anywhere near the 5 positives to 1 negative, and so almost I think it can be really helpful, and I really believe this with teenagers, is how often can you try and zip your mouth as a parent? Like, you know, you see the towel on the floor, and instead of kind of saying, look, I've told you 5 times, you hang a towel up. You know, do you think it's going to get onto the towel rail by magic? You know, what do you think is going to happen? Where's the towel fairy today? I can't find the towel fairy.
Were you 2 talking behind my back before we went live?
So in that situation, of course, my brain thinks, oh, towels on the floor again for the 50,000th time. And then what I do is I use a really neutral tone of voice. And I'll call my daughter, and my second daughter's called Honor, and I'll say, Honor, can you just come here a second? I say it in a really neutral voice, no judgment. And because she hears lots of praise, so we have a nice, good relationship, she will come up. And again, very neutrally, I just say, oh, Honor, what's going on here? And she'll say, oh, Mum, the towel's on the floor. And I say, where should it be? She'll say, on the towel rail. And she'll bend down and she'll pick it up. And what I know is that each time she does that, it wires the habit into her brain. Whereas each time I just say nothing and I pick up the towel rail, my towel hanging is pretty good. Like, my wiring is in for towel, so I don't need to do it anymore. That's already fixed in my brain. But of course, I've picked it up and I felt angry, and probably my negative mood has gone downstairs with me. Whereas by using a neutral voice and asking Honor to come and do it, and then once she's done it, say, thanks, Honor. It's really helpful of you to come up when I called and put your towel up. I appreciate it. I get the dopamine hit. She gets the dopamine hit, and she gets that wiring of repeating a positive habit in her brain. So does it take a little bit more time? Yes, because I could have hung it up in about 5 seconds, and it probably took 2 minutes for her to come up, have the conversation, hang it up. But I feel like I'm investing that time in training her in good habits. So that's another thing that parents can try, you know. And the thing is that if your teenager is used to the fact that every time you call them it's to tell them off, they probably wouldn't come up the stairs. But if a lot of the time your mouth is shut, not too negative, they hear lots of positives from you, then they're much more likely to respond when you ask them to come and do something, whether it's hang the towel or empty the dishwasher or give your hand with the cooking. So that's another tip that parents can try.
I think it's something I definitely need to keep hearing on a probably more regular basis, because, you know, as you were talking earlier, I was thinking, well, if I go up to my daughter's room, how do I praise the fact there is 1 square meter of carpet visible? It's a bit of a...
You can see the floor. It's
I know,
progress.
and your carpet looks beautiful. The bit that I can see, Ellie, is praise. But so I think with the discussion you just had, or you talked about with your daughter, that's pretty quite helpful actually to I don't know, phrase it somehow.
Yeah, and it's a good habit to get into. Absolutely, the more praise than negatives. It's always really easy to nitpick, but it's not easy to appreciate all the little the little things. So I hugely appreciate, we can test this out now, look, live testing. I really appreciate that you know how useless I am in the morning until I've had coffee. So you make me a coffee every morning so that I can function as a human being. And I appreciate that immensely.
Latte with frothy stuff on top, and see
dopamine, smiles everywhere. It's all good.
Excellent. And sometimes, your comment about your daughter with everything all over her floor, sometimes you might have to praise something else, or I can see you're really engrossed in the book you're reading, or my gosh, I can see you've got all your clothes out so you can put a kind of a stylish outfit together. And sometimes I think as well that but lots of children find transitions quite difficult. And when our children are babies, we do the transitions for them. We put their clothes on, we change the nappy. And then it's almost that once our children get to about 3 or 4, we just assume that they can easily do transitions because now they talk and they walk. So hey, if I'm an adult, I can do transitions. They should be able to do transitions. But transitions are hard for a long time, and particularly because children are motivated, their basic drivers, their basic motivations in life are feeling secure, so your attention, primary caregiver's attention, having fun, pleasure, curiosity, so learning about things, not schoolwork, by the way, that doesn't fit the bill. But, what happens if I put a fork into a plug socket, or, what happens if I take a pen and I put it on the wall, that kind of curious. And once you get to teenagers, tweens and teenagers, it's the peer group. So being in with the peer group. So they're the key motivators. So again, with schoolwork, I say to my clients, my clients will say, why doesn't my child want to get on with their homework? Or why don't they want to have a tutor session? And I'll say, right, homework, they've been at school all day. They've already done quite a lot of work. Let's see, which of those base instincts does homework fall into? Your attention, pleasure, curiosity, or peers? Oh, none of them. So lots of children don't have much internal motivation for schoolwork. Now, when you're getting more to the age of 15 and 16, it often is getting better. It is. Often they are getting some quite reasonable internal motivation. But sometimes as parents, we can just help support them, and we support them in a transition. And it might be as much as saying, I know you want to do your biology revision today. How can I help in any way? And would it help if I ask you some questions? Or would it help if I set the timer for 20 minutes and I came up and bought you a biscuit? So sometimes, it's very hard for a child to start something, and if we can support them in the transition to make that change, to sit down and start something, often they're away, they're off, they can do it, they just can't make the first step. Yep. So my 15-year-old, she shares a bedroom with her older sister, but her side is often can't see the floor, and so sometimes I will say, Honor, shall I come and help you? Would it help if I start making your bed if you start putting your clothes away? And invariably, I don't have to stay there for the whole time, because as soon as she gets going, she'll say, Mum, I've got this. I don't need any help now. Off you go. But she just couldn't quite take the first step. And again, if we get angry with them, come on, why didn't you get going? Why didn't you make your bed? Why don't you get your books out? Then again, you as the parent are getting anxious and angry, and that ups the emotional temperature in the house. And then your child is like, get off my back. Look, I said I'll do it. Like, who cares? And then they're absolutely not in a good frame of mind to actually get it done. So again, rather than nag, I always say, is there a way you can support? Yes. And that's another tip to try.
Oh, yeah.
Just something that occurs to me with the for the year 11s who are about to take exams or whatever they're called. Motivation is lacking for some people, and this is something we've heard from members where they don't see the point because they think the grades are kind of pretty much predetermined because nobody really knows exactly how the grades are going to be created this year, and that is a familiar. Oh, I don't see the point. Might sound like a bit of a teenage thing, but is it just back to I don't know, praising the tiny bit of effort they do, same as you said earlier? There is a point to it. We know there's a point to it, but that's because we have the rational brains that are, in theory, properly developed.
Yeah, absolutely. It is the praise. And I would use another skill that I teach is something called emotion coaching. So because our prefrontal cortex is pretty strong, when our children struggle, we often go into being really rational. So they'll say, oh, I don't want to do it. What's the point? I mean, it doesn't mean anything this year. And we'll go straight into fix-it mode using our rational brain. We will say, no, there is a point because actually those grades will still be looked at by universities. And, you know, when you go for your first job interview, they'll look at those grades. And we've gone straight into fix-it mode. But when a child is feeling emotional, when they're feeling despondent, when they're feeling anxious, when they're feeling angry or upset, when adults use logic with them, they feel really disconnected from the adult. They really feel like, you don't get me. You don't know what I'm going through. And you know, all you do is advice. So half the time, the first step has to be, I can understand that it's really frustrating this year, that it's not clear how the system's going to work, and it's not clear if it's going to be fair or not. And I can see that feels really difficult for you. So it's getting in with some empathy. And again, I feel like as grown-ups, we're pretty good at empathy with our friends. So, you know, if your girlfriend calls you and she says, you know, I've had a bad day and I've broken my new boots and I've got a parking ticket, you know, we don't say, well, this is how you should mend your shoe. And should you write and tell the parking people the ticket wasn't fair? We don't. We tend to say, gosh, sounds to me like you've had a bad day. You deserve a glass of wine. And we go, oh, and we feel much better. But somehow, again, I think we don't feel so capable of doing that with our children and with our teens. It's almost like we're so busy wanting to fix it that we miss the empathy step. So, you know, every time you get your sense that your child is feeling emotional in any way, connect with the emotion first. Seems to me that you are really angry that you now have exams at the beginning of May and at the end of May, and that feels really unfair because you really, if it was a normal year, you would just have one set of exams. I can see that's really frustrating. And basically, I always think of emotion as a wave. So your child's wave of emotion goes up, 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 up. You know, they kind of get angrier and angrier and angrier. And so it takes a while for waves to come down. So if you want to bring a wave down, you know, if you deny their feeling, look, pull yourself together. I don't know why you're making a fuss. Everybody else is in the same boat. Nobody else is, you know, everyone else has got to sit 2 sets of exams. So, you know, stop making a fuss. Then all we've done to that child's emotional wave is make it bigger. Or if we get involved saying, look, this is what you need to do. This is what you've got to get on with in the next few weeks. I've prepared a revision plan for you. Then that makes the emotion wave bigger. So actually, we've got to get in there with the empathy, saying, again, it's so frustrating, and kind of match their energy level. So if they're really angry, you can't really say, oh, that's really frustrating. You have to say, boy, that's frustrating. And then I would say, expect to reflect back their feeling anywhere between 3 to 5 times. And the brilliant thing is, you don't have to fix it. It's not your job to fix it. your job is just to bring, it's basically just to re-regulate their emotional brain and their thinking brain. So you say, boy, that's frustrating. I can see you're annoyed. And then your child goes, yeah, because what's the point, right? And you say, I understand. I totally get it. It's hard enough revising once, let alone for 2 exams. Yeah, I mean, do you know, Mum, I am going to have to sit exams for 4 days in May and then do them all again at the end of May. I can see that is frustrating. It is. And what's for dinner, by the way? Because can you get that sense of how you come down? But if you go in too quickly with advice or denial or pull yourself together comments, their emotional wave gets bigger and bigger. And one thing, I'm sure you know this, but when your body is full of emotion, you literally can't engage your thinking brain. So an emotional child cannot open their books to study. You know, forget it, because there is no space in their brain to concentrate on laying down learning, you know. So kind of helping children self-regulate is a really key step that's what a really key step for us to support our children with. So
that was something I think we were going to ask about. We've talked before with another guest about the whole parasympathetic nervous system and resetting that stress response, because when your body gets stressed and overly emotional, you're releasing that flood of cortisol and everything, and adrenaline, and everything's just and everything goes fight or flight in your brain, and everything else, all of the other resources divert to that bit. And so the designated driver thinking part at the front is stuck outside with the door locked. And so we've talked about strategies, practical strategies that people can use just to help reset their body. So if there's anything that you have, any techniques that parents could try out, for example, that'd be brilliant.
Absolutely. So here's a few top tips. So some really base ones: keeping your brain regulated between your limbic system and your prefrontal cortex. There's some baseline things that make a big difference: sleep, good eating habits, and exercise. So as your children get closer and closer to exams, really try not to let them cram. Yeah, no late night cramming, because if they stay up late and they don't get the sleep they need, they will find it really hard to regulate their brain. When your children are doing revision, make sure they have plenty of time to go on a walk, or you know, you might have a trampoline in your garden, go on the trampoline, go on their skateboard, but physical exercise. And, you know, I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of conversations around digital use with online schooling, etc. But try not to let your children just go from doing revision to playing an online digital game to going back to revision. So they're kind of baseline things. You can really help your children through making sure they've got good breathing techniques. And I don't know if you covered this with the other guest, but all my kids have been taught, and all my clients, I ask them to teach their kids to breathe, and it's super straightforward. It's just big breath in through your nose so your tummy pops out, and then hold for a count of 2 and blow out through your mouth for a count of 6. So if you do those 5 big breaths, you will help regulate your body. So as you walk towards the exam hall, it is absolutely normal that you will have butterflies in your stomach, that you've released adrenaline and cortisol. So knowing, though, that you can control it through your breath can be a really great thing. Now, I always say again, when you go into an exam, you want to feel some butterflies in your stomach. You don't want to feel like totally relaxed, like I could be on a beach, because that won't get the best. And if you talk to any, you know, top athletes, they all feel the butterflies in the tummy, but they read it as being something useful and powerful, not as something really negative, even though physically it feels uncomfortable. So they can take the uncomfortable feeling and say there's something positive. The other thing that can be really helpful in the moment before you get into an exam, your strongest sense is your smell sense. So I always say, if there's a smell you really like, it might be your mum's perfume, it might be your dad's aftershave, it might be the fact your mum puts lavender on your pillow, I don't know. You know, any smell that you feel you like, put on a tissue, put in your pocket, and then of course you can look like you're blowing your nose, and that smell, that soothing smell, will relax you. Another one which sounds really simple is touch is very powerful. So if, again, you're feeling anxious and you're walking towards an exam, run your fingers like this. And when I do it now, it feels a bit odd, to be honest. But when you're stressed, just that touch is very effective. If you've got a child, because I'm just giving you some tips for in the moment. But if any of your listeners have children who are generally anxious, so it's not just the half an hour before the exam, but you feel that their anxiety is really detrimental to their life in terms of they can't even open a book to revise because they feel anxious. You know, they're saying for months, I'm going to fail, I'll never be able to do A-levels, I'll never get a job, I'm a loser. Then you have to do a little bit more work than just what I'm telling you. And so when I have clients with children who are just a bit more anxious, I get them to do some cognitive work well in advance of the exams, and it has to be done when their child is calm. And I get them to get a piece of paper and just talk to their children about the fact that your brain plays tricks on you. Yeah. Your emotional brain plays tricks on your cognitive brain. And it does that because feelings are so strong, you think that because they're strong, they must be right. But actually, feelings are not always right. So you can do a facts versus feelings. So a fact, I might have a feeling I'm going to fail. But the fact is, I've got good marks in my test results. I might have a feeling that, I'm going to open the exam paper and I won't be able to do any of it. The fact is, I've done lots of practice papers, and every one of those practice papers, my brain could concentrate on. So you literally write down on a piece of paper feelings, facts. And then the other thing that the brain does is it does this probability thing. And you know how often you don't like getting on an aeroplane? And I say to people, why don't you want to get on an aeroplane? Who doesn't like getting on an aeroplane? And, always in my classes, a number of people will say, I don't like aeroplanes. And I'll say, why? And I'll say, because it might crash and I'll die. And then we talk about how the brain doesn't get probabilities right, because it's much more dangerous getting in a car for 100-mile journey than getting on an aeroplane. So your brain looks at outcome without attaching the right probability to it. So after you've done the facts versus feelings, then you do a probability. So I will completely fail. What is the probability of that? Oh, actually, it's pretty low. Actually, the probability I'll fail every exam, it's less than 1%. And again, I go through each of the things and we put a probability. And that enables you to see, okay, that outcome I'm worrying about is a very negative outcome, but the probability of it happening is really, really low. And then the third thing that you do is you do a what if, what else? So you walk through probabilities. So what if I fail all my exams? Well, what else could happen? Well, I could resit them, or actually, as long as I get some of them, that will be good enough. So you do this what if to what else. So at the end of this exercise, it takes about 30 minutes. Your child has a piece of paper with it all written out on. And then when your child says to you, oh, I feel terrible. Oh, I'm having a hard time. I'll say, is it your smart brain or is it your worry brain? And, some of my kids I've done this work with, and they'll say, oh, is the worry brain. And then you can talk to your worry brain and say, back in your box, worry brain, I'm not listening to you, you know. And then you get your piece of paper out and you open it, and there's all the work you've got written down. And this is why you have to make the time to write it down. And then that piece of paper might come out 10 times before the exam. And is it perfect? Does your child say, oh, great, oh, I don't feel worried at all? No, but these are all, they're all support mechanisms for your child. Like, I've got my piece of paper, I can tell my worry brain to go away. I can start my breathing. I've got a handkerchief I can smell. And knowing that knowing that they have all these tools to help just stops their anxiety going through the roof. So what is super not helpful is when parents say, you're fine, there's nothing to worry about, it's all going to go really well, look, just don't worry. Because again, that's your logical brain talking to your child's emotional brain, and you haven't calmed your child in any way. All your child thinks is, you don't get me, you don't understand what I'm going through. So
it's all fluff again that you talked about earlier, the fluff. It doesn't, there's nothing really attached to those words. It's a platitude almost.
Yeah. I love that everything you've talked about isn't just applicable for children as well. I'm kind of hearing things on the list. I'm thinking, oh, sometimes I do get a bit worried about such and such. Maybe I should do a list and work my way through the thing. And I know we have parents who have recently confessed to counting to 100 several times a day because they're clashing with their child and they're finding that they're getting really stressed. And those breathing exercises could make a huge difference, because it bypasses the ability to reason with your brain. It just resets your body physiologically speaking, which is a big deal.
But also the positives, if you sort of start that cycle off, and you know, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I should probably listen to this on a loop every month or so, just because you know, I do occasionally maybe moan about my daughter's bedroom, and you know, she's generally fantastic, but it is the thing that kind of bugs me a little bit, and I do go with the negatives, and I can see how it's not helpful. So you know, I think a constant reminder, just until I get into a habit, is, I mean,
yeah, well, that's the thing. It's building habits, isn't it? It's the same as with good revision. If it's a habit, it's a lot easier for children to do, because it's just the thing that I do at this time of day, rather than it being a thing I have to actually think about and make myself do. And the 5-minute win we talk about as well. If you get them to start even just for 5 minutes, as you said, it's normally like the snowball that starts off the avalanche. I liken it to the giant pile of ironing that's taller than you are, and you can leave that in the corner for a few weeks until it becomes absolutely urgent and you're at the point where you're going to have to wear pajamas to work otherwise before you're willing to start. But once you do start, you'll pretty much get through all of it because you've started. But it's so easy to put off, and that's how our kids feel about revision, isn't it? So yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I always laugh. I always say I do the job that I do just to keep all of the skills in mind, because you know, I just really want to reiterate to anyone listening to this, you know, we parent the way we parent, not because we don't have the very best intentions for our children, but often it is how we were parented. I mean, you know, I had lovely parents, but there wasn't a very little chat about emotions when I grew up. You know, they might ask, is your basket packed for cookery, or have you got your school books done, or can I help with your homework? But they wouldn't say, gosh, you look like you're having a bad day. You know, are you anxious about something? Are you sad about something? And I think, you know, this looking for the negative, it's very wired into our brain, because, you know, we haven't always been top of the food chain. So historically, you know, if you came out of a cave, which was only probably 10,000 years ago, actually, when we were all hunter-gatherers, and you looked for the good first, and you said, oh, look at the blue sky, smell the roses, hear the babble of the brook, get something had eaten you. That yellow shape in the bush you hadn't noticed just had you for lunch. So
our brains are really wired to be threat detectors. And, you know, 10,000 years ago, the threat was a wild animal. It was a poisonous plant. It was anything bigger that could physically harm us or stop us reproducing or kill us.
And now it's man-eating towels on the floor.
Yeah, and man-eating towels, homework that's not been done, you know, complaints about the food you've provided. And as far as our brain is concerned, you know, that's the threat that it's looking for. And a lot of it depends on what kind of expectations you have of your children. And there is definitely generational amnesia. It is proven. Okay. So, you know, you probably remember that when you were a child, you always hung up the towel. But, you know, if you could rewind, that was almost definitely did.
I've never heard of that. Generational amnesia.
Yeah. So, you know, I often think it's about being realistic with our expectations for our children. You know, it's a bit like sleep, isn't it? Our teenagers' brains, they're really designed to go to bed at 11 and wake up at about 8. And so they're not wrong to not want to go to bed. But how do we support them? You know, helping them get into a good routine, making sure they don't have their phones in their bedroom at night, because if their phones bing, they won't sleep. You know, all those kind of things that you do to support them going to bed on time. But they're not wrong for wanting to stay up late, because that's their melatonin in their brain. So, you know, I kind of have this view that children are 24 years of mistake after mistake after mistake. And if you have that expectation, it doesn't mean you're completely permissive and you go, oh, well, it doesn't matter. But it just keeps you a bit calmer when you see the towel on the floor, you hear them moaning, you see the messy bedroom or the homework that's not done. It just thinking, actually, that's normal. And what can I do to support building a better habit enables you just to stay a little bit calmer. And if you can stay calmer, you can find a bit of praise, or you can find a bit of fun. Because actually, when you talk about neurochemicals in the brain, releasing serotonin or oxytocin or dopamine, all the good neurochemicals that make you more motivated and make you feel good, a lot of those come from laughter. They come from physical touch. So, and so, you know, if you can come up with a funny comment, or I don't know, you know, even do a funny dance. I mean, my children think that I'm kind of slightly odd.
Oh, that's mine do.
But they laugh, you know, they're funny. Mummy's got all these funny sayings and they all laugh, not in a nasty way, just in a family humor way. And of course, as soon as they laugh, they're much more likely to try to be engaged, to feel connected with you. But of course, if you don't have realistic expectations for teenage behavior, you just are feeling angry and cross and disappointed and resentful and let down all the time. And if that's how you feel as an adult, it's really hard to find some fun. It's really hard to find some praise. So there's a really good book called by, I don't know if you've come across it, Tanith, Carey. And it's called What's My Teenager Thinking? And what she does is she breaks down pretty much every piece of teenager behavior you've ever seen and kind of explains what's going on in the teenager's brain, explains what's going on in your brain as the parent listening to what the teenager's saying, and then kind of decodes it. So that's a really nice book. And there's another really good teenager book by Bettina Hohnen, so The Incredible Teenage Brain. And I always say, I always recommend to parents, you know, what I find is a lot of people come to me and they come to us and we do parenting courses when their children are anywhere between 2 and you know, kind of 7 or 8, and then they often come back when their children are somewhere between 11 and 13, because the brain changes that have taken place means that they're dealing with something quite different. And back to what you say, knowledge is power.
Knowledge beats nagging. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think if you learn about what's kind of normal, it just stops you being uber anxious as a parent that you've got this kind of, what's this child? I mean, how are they ever going to be an adult in life if this is how they behave at 14? Whereas actually it's really normal for a 14-year-old to be like that. So
yeah, I think we hear from people a lot. It feels like they're doing something wrong as a parent. I think that's what you worry, isn't it? You worry that you've not done a good enough job as a parent if your child can't cope with whatever the situation is. But you need to just, big picture, take your deep breaths and remember that it is indeed completely normal, and it will pass.
Yeah, they will come back down to earth
eventually.
Yeah,
and temperament is a big deal. You know, do you have an introvert? Do you have an extrovert? Do you have a persistent? Do you have a child that's good at transitions, who's not good at transitions? And a lot of things in life is about accepting the child you've got, and then using these skills of empathy and praise and good ways of giving instructions and thinking about how to support your child and how to handle positively mistakes. And then you'll get the best you can get out of the child you've got, and they'll feel really connected to you, and you'll have a really great relationship. And you know, there's all the research about secure attachment. If you have a really good secure attachment with your child, it's their internal pot of gold, you know, and it's their launch pad. So actually the most important thing with a child is their relationship with you as the primary caregiver. And I was giving a workshop the other day on, and it was on anxiety. And a lady stayed behind afterwards, and she'd got a really sensitive child. And if you've got a really sensitive child, you know, smells overwhelm them, sounds overwhelms them, the scratchy labels overwhelm them. And of course, school is really challenging for high sensory children. You know, it's a nightmare. Everything's too loud, too bright, smells too much. And she had got this 8-year-old boy who's really sensitive, and she said, I keep telling him, stop being sensitive. And it was a revelation to her when I said, he is who he is. He is sensitive. So try hard to praise him for, you know, gosh, you smell so well. You're a super smeller. Or, you know, you're going to be really in tune with your environment because you feel everything so clearly. But, you know, telling a sensitive child to stop being sensitive, it's like a double negative. The child's already struggling with sensitivity, and now you're telling him he's wrong for being sensitive and he should be able to do something about it. So a lot of we make ourselves more effective as parents when we really get to know the children we've got and accept it and look for all the best points, instead of thinking that by nagging or criticizing or blaming or comparing, we can turn them into something else. I don't think we can, but they just don't feel so good about themselves, and they don't feel so good about their relationship with us. So, you know, and to me, obviously with a 16-year-old, you know, I wish her the best for her GCSEs in whatever form they are. And she is definitely working pretty hard, taking exercise, sleeping, but you know, it's just one step in a much longer, broader road. And you know, we don't want to destroy our relationship with our children as a result of it. So you know, that would be my advice. But also, if you look for the good and you use a bit of praise, you know, it works really, really well. So
I think that is probably the perfect point to finish. I mean, if there are any other questions, anyone listening to the live, please, now is the time to shout very loudly. Do you want to just click through any of the comments?
But yes, the hour has flown by. We had back when we were talking about mindset, Anne commented that Classroom Dojo on YouTube for younger children has some great clips talking about that kind of stuff as well. When we were talking about Carol Dweck's RSA thing, Classroom Dojo is something that they've probably, most of them have used at primary school at some stage anyway in terms of behaviour. So yeah, it's I think there's been a lot to take in. I know I've certainly got a few things where it's clicked in my brain and I've thought, oh yeah, I should probably try a different approach with that one. So Pamela, yes, this can be watched again. So if you're listening to this now, then you know that because you're on the podcast and you're having a listen. If you'd rather watch, then this lives on our Facebook pages. So it's currently live on Parent Guide to GCSE and Parent Guide to Post 16 pages. So you can come back and watch these anytime you like. You can make notes. You can decide which time bits you like. You do whatever you want, but it will appear on the podcast at some stage as well.
And in the podcast, the show notes will have the references to the various books.
Yes.
And anything else that needs to go on there.
Indeed.
Yeah. And if you know, the parent team, we have a Instagram page every day. We put up helpful tips, helpful reminders. Our website has quite a lot of information on it, and we send out a newsletter every 2 weeks, and it will have a topical blog and ask us anything. So someone will ask a question about digital use or whatever, and we'll answer it. So there's lots of resources and support on the parent team website as well. So
that's wonderful. Thank you. I think there's probably so much more we could talk about, but we're going to cut it short at that point, and then I think probably invite you back another time to catch up on the rest.
Pamela will find the names of the books and pop them in the comments after we finish. So give us 10 minutes or so. Show
notes for those of you listening. So yes, and thank you ever so much for giving up your time this evening with us. It's been amazingly helpful. I think there have been a lot of nuggets. If you're watching on Facebook and you want to drop in a sort of hashtag nugget with the thing that's jumped out at you the most, I think that would be a really useful kind of set of hints for other people as they watch through and listen through as well. So do feel free to drop that in. And
lots of people saying thank you. So
indeed, and it has been a delight talking with all of you as always. And have a lovely rest of your evening.
Jenny, thank you very much.
Massive thank you.
It's a pleasure, and good luck to everybody and their children with their GCSEs.